Ah, shoot, I missed. Well, welcome into the Tiger Kickoff Show. Jacob Siciliano joined alongside our wonderful Missourian staff as the Tigers, if you watched the game on Saturday, kind of just squeaked one out against unranked Vandy. They were the, 7th best ranked team in the country and escaped a upset just narrowly 30-27. Again, we have our wonderful Missourian crew here to break everything down in Adam Busak, Davis Wilson, Amelia Hurley. Adam, thank you for being my goalpost. But I think for a lot of Tiger fans here, they walked into Faurot Field on Saturday. They had the hopes up. A lot of people had their dad's weekends, family in town. Faurot Field sold out once again. They're like, all right, we're going to roll through Vandy. Tigers haven't lost to Vandy since 2019. 7th, again, best ranked team in the country. And Vandy just went into Faurot Field and shocked a lot of Tiger fans. And I think, frankly, shocked a lot of Tigers players and coaches.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that loss in 2019. It was homecoming. I think that was really the loss that did Barry Odom in. It was his last season as the Tigers head coach. Obviously, a year before, Elijah Drinkwitz took the reins here. He's never lost to Vanderbilt, but there's been a handful of times where he's been close, including, obviously, this game this past weekend, but also the last time that these two teams matched up in Faurot Field 2 years ago. For some reason, Missouri just can't seem to clear that Vanderbilt hurdle very easily. This was a concerning game, but it's not a game that's going to sink your season.
Shout out to Barry Odom, too, for knocking down Kansas as UNLV a couple weeks ago. It was a pretty cool thing. But, yeah, it's a head-scratcher, I think, for a lot of Tiger fans. It's like, how in the world were we in a game with Vanderbilt? And it felt like one of those things where it's like with Boston College. Like, oh, it's a slow start, but the Tigers pulled away, right? No, they didn't. They went in double overtime. We're one play away from losing to Vanderbilt, and we're maybe, I don't know, how far did that kick miss? I think it was shanked. That far away from, going into a third overtime with Vanderbilt. So it was a game that was a little concerning. Davis, how are you doing today? Are you mentally okay? Is your heart okay from, Saturday, Missouri potentially? Who knows what would happen if they lost to Vanderbilt? Are you everything good physically, mentally?
Heart's okay. Yeah,
Heart's okay, Davis.
Okay. My heart's recovered. Yeah. I agree with all the things Adam said. It wasn't. Missouri was able to sneak one out thanks to a shank at the end. I was not really super impressed with the offense once again. The defense, I thought, held its ground at some points in the game, which ended up being a big deal. But yeah, overall, a lot to work on heading into the bye week.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Adam and Davis said. I think Vanderbilt is one of those opponents that Mizzou just has this history with, where it's always just seems like closer than it should be. And Mizzou has a couple teams like that. But yeah, Vanderbilt, they played hard. They played hard all, I was going to say all 4 quarters, but I guess 4 quarters in double overtime with that. So it definitely was a close game. My heart is also recovered as well.
I'm good. I was sitting in the hill. I'm glad you're okay, Amelia. I was worried. I was thinking of you guys because I was at the game as a fan. It was a cool experience. It was pretty fun. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was a lot of stress, to be honest. But I'm sitting there on the hill. I'm looking up at the press box, and I'm like, I wonder what Adam, Davis, and Amelia are doing right now, because that game, from a just statistical standpoint, was stressful because we talked about it so many times in the show. You said it last week, Adam. You referenced me from a couple weeks ago. This Missouri Tigers team, they don't have mulligans. They can't lose. You hear Luther Burden, he goes and he talks to the national media saying, we need national attention, we need national attention. Well, Missouri is not the Ohio States of the world. They're not the Penn States, these perennial teams that get ranked high and are talked about. So the Tigers have to do it with their record. And they came about, just that close to not being a part of that club. Who knows what would happen, where the Tigers fall in the AP poll if they lose that game. We'll get to that in just a second. I want to ask you guys, though, what do you think went wrong here for the Tigers? I mean, there's certainly a lot of factors. I'm sure you can pinpoint one or two, but I feel like there's several when it comes down to it. But if you could just name a couple out right now, what do you think happened here that this was even a game with Vanderbilt? Especially, I'll own up to it. Last year, the Tigers rolled through Vandy, and I thought Brady Cook was going to do it again. He didn't. He threw for 395 yards last year, threw 2 touchdowns to Luther, 1 to Marquise Johnson, and another to Theo Weiss. And he came out flat. He only threw for 226 and 2 touchdowns. So very different game, like you said, Amelia, from years past.
One
but what
thing
do you think went wrong?
One thing I'll say that is a credit to Brady Cook, he didn't turn the ball over, and Missouri didn't turn the ball over in general, which is one of very few things that did go right. As far as things that went wrong, I think you could write an essay. I think you could write a book on this game alone, just how awful things went in so many different facets for this Missouri team. I personally am going to focus on the play calling. I think this was the worst called game of the Kirby Moore tenure here in Columbia. Since he took over as offensive coordinator, as play caller 2 years ago, I don't think he's had a worse game at any level. He just looked completely lost. There were a lot of third downs, even some fourth downs, where he was just drawing up some baffling plays, and you had one facet of your offense that was totally working, and Nate Noel, he was averaging 8 yards a run, almost got to 200 yards net. He finished with 199 net, and they just weren't hammering the ball to him. Just hand the ball off. Run the football. It's not that difficult, Jacob.
Yeah, Nate Noel, he was just named Offensive Player of the Week. He was with the quarterback for LSU, 24 for 199. And you see a guy that runs for, like you said, over 8 yards per carry, has nearly 200 yards. 24 carries is a lot of carries for any running back in the game, but it could be more. It could be a lot more, especially when you're working in a backfield that is split between, Marcus Carroll and Jamal Roberts and these guys. I do want to continue this conversation, though, about the way that this game was managed. Do you think that it is Kirby Moore that is managing the clock here? You can really think back to the end of the first half when Vandy got a free 3 points on what was a very solid 57-yard field goal. It's funny enough that the kicks that were missed in this game were much shorter than the longest ones there, and that's something that you don't see too often. But you can really think to some of the decisions that might have been made not just by Kirby Moore. Do you think it was him on those decisions, or do you think it was more of a collective, including Drinkwitz?
I think those types of things, the management is Drinkwitz. I think, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing I was going to touch on, is that I think it was really not a good showing for Drinkwitz as the head coach. I think he addressed some of the things he did wrong. That the end of the half, where he basically gave Vanderbilt 3 extra points, was really confusing to me as I was watching. There were some other instances as well where I think he lined up to go for it, ended up punting. It's just these things where he probably has to be better. Those are on Drinkwitz. The play calling, the offense, that's more on Kirby Moore, and I don't think either of them had their best day against Vanderbilt.
I mean, there's so many things that we can pinpoint here, and I think it is spread out too. I think you look at Brady Cook and some of those third downs that weren't converted. Missouri had 7 third down conversions out of 17 attempts. And you look at some of the play calling stuff from Kirby Moore and some of the time management from Drinkwitz, and it all melds into this thing that could have been a disaster. I want to talk to you specifically. We only have limited time here, but I want to ask you specifically, Amelia, about the decision on 4th and inches, with nearly under a minute left in the entire game to punt that football in Vanderbilt territory. Do you think that was the right move?
It's hard to say. I obviously don't have any coaching experience, but I think that I understand that Drinkwitz was trying to play it safe. He was trying to take it, into overtime within those calls and try to play that safe route. But it's one of those situations where no matter what you do, you're not going to make some people happy. So he did say in the post-game press conference that he takes accountability for a lot of the mistakes that were made. So I think that hopefully within this bye week, everyone's going to get everything together.
And he did take accountability for a lot of stuff. I had several people that were there, I'm sure you guys were there as well, that told me that this is the most somber they've seen Drinkwitz in a press conference in a long time, and rightfully so. I mean, they came literally this close to having one of the biggest disasters in Missouri history. And I think for Eli Drinkwitz, it was a little bit of a scare. The nice thing here is that Missouri is on a bye week, and Missouri is going to have some time to look over themselves and try to correct things before they continue an even tougher SEC schedule against 3 ranked teams, including Texas A&M, who they play in 2 weeks. Eli Drinkwitz talked about that opportunity to take a hard look at the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, the furthest thing from everybody in that locker room's mind, and starting with me and my staff, is going to be Texas A&M. We got to go take a hard look at the Missouri Tigers, and we got to figure out why we're not executing in the third downs in the red area, why we're not kicking field goals, why we're missing tackles, why we're busting assignments.
It's loud, and I feel like we have to really lock in on the Tigers and not worry about the Texas A&M.
All right, so you heard it right there, focusing on not just Texas A&M, not just the opponents that come down the road, but the Tigers right now. And I think that's a perfectly placed time to have a bye to try to figure this stuff out. But I want to ask you, because this loss to Vandy, this near loss to Vandy, almost very scary. The slow starts all year. The issues from Brady Cook so far, finding a rapport with his receivers. It might have some people wanting to hit this red little button. I know you can't see it too well. It says panic on there. This is our panic button, friends. And I'm going to pass this thing around, and we're going to find out if Adam, Davis, and Amelia are panicking right now on the Missouri Tigers. And we're not panicking on making it to a bowl game. We're not panicking on having a 6-6 season. We're panicking on making the college football playoff, because I feel like that has been the expectation day one for this Tigers team. Drinkwitz himself said it, and that's what this fan base wants. So, Adam, I'll leave it to you.
Well, Davis, I'm looking at this this panic button, and I'm thinking about it pretty intently, but I'm not going to hit it. When you're in the SEC, as Missouri is, all you can do is play the teams that are laid in front of you. And if you take care of business, it doesn't matter the matter in which you take care of business. If you take care of business, you will make the playoff. I don't see any universe where a team goes 10-2, an SEC team goes 10-2, and doesn't make the playoff. I think Missouri still has a very easy path to 10-2. They might go 11-1. Was this game ugly? Yes. Have they played a couple ugly games in a row? Definitely. But have they taken care of business? Yes, they have. Missouri right now has the longest winning streak in FBS, dating back to last season. 8 games. They've won 8 games in a row. They've won all 4 games they've played this week. All they need to do is keep taking care of business. It doesn't matter how ugly it is. I'm not ready to press that panic button yet.
I think that's a great take right there. It goes back to stuff we mentioned with Amelia even a couple weeks ago, where it's great to move up in the AP poll, but the same goes for moving down. All that matters is the end of the year, and they'll look back, right? And they're not going to worry about where the Tigers were in the AP poll after week 4. They're going to look and they're going to see how many wins the Tigers have, and because Missouri was able to evade a loss and they were able to just have enough. You know, my dad, he has always had a saying with me since I was little. Good teams find ways to win, bad teams find ways to lose. And the Tigers were able to find a way to win. And that's what the committee is going to look like at the end of the year. Now, the reason we're passing around a panic button is because there is a whole rest of the season to play. The Tigers are undefeated now, but who knows, only the Lord knows what the next couple weeks has in store for this Missouri Tigers team. So my question to you, Davis, are you hitting the red button that says panic?
You know, in the movies when they have the big red and they've got the cover over it, so you got to lift the cover. So I've lifted the cover. I've not yet hit the button, and it's for a lot of the reasons that Adam talked about. But ultimately, this was an ugly game. It was not a fun game to watch for fans. The sellout crowd, not a fun watch for them. But they're 4-0, and they got the win, and that's really all you can ask for in the SEC. Vanderbilt, I think, is a better team than a lot of people are giving them credit for. Diego Pavia is a really good quarterback, and Missouri learned that, but they got a win, and that ultimately is what matters.
I'm in the same boat as Adam and Davis. That cover has been lifted, but it's not going to be hit yet. I think that this bye week could not come at a better time for the Tigers. They really need to get some stuff together. Really, it comes down to quarterback play for a majority of it. Brady Cook really needs to get his game together, and you could tell during the press conference as well, he knows that. And I think Drinkwitz said the whole team knows that they all need to get better. So they're self-aware of it. It's just a matter of taking that extra week, getting healthy, recovering, getting to that point where you can go out at College Station in the first half of Texas A&M and show them who the Tigers are. Now, if at halftime against Texas A&M, if they don't come out strong, I will hit that panic button. But as of right now, I'm not hitting that panic button.
I like it, Amelia. And you guys are all across the board, very even-keeled, not emotional, not reactive. Yeah, I'm not like that. Just kidding. I'm not clicking the panic button. I really wanted to hit the big red button. No, I think for Missouri, the last time you saw the Tigers have a near loss like this was MTSU. Middle Tennessee State University. And what happened in week 3, the game after? It was the game that changed the course of Missouri Tiger history, potentially, in that 61-yard field goal from Harrison Mevis that, had Thoreau rush in the field. And it was awesome. It was a great experience, and you end the season with a Cotton Bowl, right? But that all came after what a lot of fans thought was going to be a rough season after a near loss to MTSU, right? And here we are again, a couple weeks later. It's week 4 and not week 2, but a near loss against Vanderbilt. You have a bye week to recoup, and then you go against Texas A&M. I am with Amelia, however. I will hit this button. I promise. I will hit it if we come out flat against Texas A&M and this team looks like they have not learned from this experience. This is a wake-up call. This is your definition wake-up call. I said it wasn't a trap game last week, but it turned out to be. It turned out to be a trap game for Missouri. I thought Texas A&M was going to be the trap game. No, this was the trap game right here. And if the Tigers are not able to come out firing and play with an intensity, and Brady Cook can find his confidence at the quarterback position, I'm going to click this button right here. I really want to talk quickly. We're running low on time here. The Tigers fall from 7 to 11 in the AP poll, 11 where they started their year. We talked a little bit about it, of saying like it doesn't really matter at the end of the year, but obviously nobody likes moving down. Missouri's moved down in the AP poll now for 2 consecutive weeks. Your take on that, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, this is the same thing that I said last week. I mean, it's this early in the season. Yes, you're undefeated, but you haven't looked great really a single time yet. And you run into the situation where I think the AP poll is just trying to normalize itself, right? Maybe Missouri didn't belong as the number 7 team in the country. It didn't belong as the number 6 team in the country the week before that. This is just the voters correcting themselves based off of what they've seen so far. Now, I will say Missouri, every time that they fall in the poll on social media, they're putting out that motto, right? STP, something to prove. You see the tweets, you see the posts on Instagram with that hashtag. When you go to second overtime with Vanderbilt at home, you don't get to say that, man. You don't get to say that, hey, we deserve better than this, because you certainly haven't played like it. That's my bone to pick today.
I like that. I mean, it goes back to, too, like Luther Burton, he's talking. You want national media attention. Take care of Vanderbilt, I mean, and trust me, Luther, one of the best receivers in the country, 6 receptions, 76 yards, had that massive touchdown in overtime for the Tigers. But he also had a couple drops. Like, I don't know if people noticed this or not. Luther Burton was great, but he could have been better that game. There were a couple plays where Brady Cook put a good ball in his hands, and he let it hit the turf. So I think, too, like, there are people that can improve, especially if you want national media attention. If you're winning and you're undefeated, you're going to get it. Davis, is 11 the right spot for the Tigers?
Yeah, I'll be quick. It's the right spot. I think that they weren't the 7th best team in the country last week. I think 11 is a lot closer to what they are in reality, and I think it's pretty fair based on how they played.
Amelia, do you think that the Tigers can reach back up to that 6, 7, maybe even 5 spot this year, or what would that take for Missouri?
It would take coming out off of this bye week with a strong demeanor, a strong play, strong game. Don't keep making these seemingly like simple mistakes. It really comes down to you need to have that offense click, and it needs to happen now. Now is where it is, now or never, if you're wanting to get into the playoffs. It's almost time to hit the panic button, not yet, but they really do need to start playing like a playoff team.
Yeah, and you just mentioned the plays right there. There was one specific play, one big play that we saw that ended up in Missouri getting that overtime win. Let's take a look at it in Adam's big plays. All right, welcome in to Adam's big plays with this wonderful man right here with that beautiful big brain. Is going to break down the plays from a very close game against the Vanderbilt Commodores. Adam, let's jump into overtime right here. This is where it all matters, where it all came down to. You can look at the plays from the first half. I don't think many of us want to. Break down what happened here in OT.
Jacob, I got 3 plays for you from overtime here in the first one. Blink, you might miss it. This is Brady Cook. First play from scrimmage in overtime. He finds Luther Burden down the seam there.
Where was
Gets
that
it
old
right
game?
there in the end, right in the background. Mizzou basketball legend Sean East. He's loving that one. A great play for the Tigers. Missouri gets on the board. Big sweat play. This was, for my money, the most stressful play of the entire overtime period. The extra point from Blake Craig. And then coming around, a missed field goal for Vanderbilt on the other side to clinch this game for the Tigers. Jacob, kicking is very difficult. We saw that for sure throughout the course of the game here. 3 missed kicks for the Tigers, 2 for Vanderbilt. Obviously, that's 10 points that Missouri could have used in regulation. This game wouldn't have gone to overtime in the first place. Vanderbilt, of course, that's cosmic justice, really trying to knot it back up on the other side in overtime. missed kicks were the story of the game. It was rainy, it was gross, the field wasn't quite great. I just don't think the kickers really had good footing throughout the course of the game. That really was a key factor, I think, for this game going to overtime in the first place, because for my money, Missouri was the better team all day. They just squandered a lot of opportunities, especially in that kicking game. For Blake Craig, better things on the horizon. He'll be better in weeks to come.
Yeah, 5 total missed kicks, but would you like to see that Brady to Luther connection in Blake Craig after missing 3 kicks, making a big one to win the game for the Tigers? Well, thank you, Adam, for your analysis of those big plays. And Adam, that beautiful big brain. Well, thank you, Adam. Appreciate your big brain as always. And then at the same time, hopefully we see a lot more of that from the Missouri Tigers going forward. Let's move over. Let's talk about our grades here. You know, we get to be the scholastic teacher, and it was a rough week for the class. Adam, what's your grade for the Tigers this week?
Jacob, as I said earlier in the show, Missouri gets the win, and that matters for something. I think the lowest that you can go, it's true. I think the lowest you can go as a teacher, well, you still get the win, is a C, and that's exactly where I'm putting this team at. This was a C performance. This is one of the weaker performances I've seen. You mentioned it earlier. It was Middle Tennessee State last year. This reminds me so much of that game in a lot of different ways, where you're walking from the press box to the post-game press conference, and it doesn't really feel like a win. Everybody's walking out of the stadium, and yeah, they know they won, but everyone's kind of somber. Nobody's really talking.
It feels gross. Feels like
you
you've
just
been
feel
showered and
exactly.
all week.
You're coming home from a long night out, and maybe you had a good time, but it certainly doesn't feel like that in the
Adam's
moment.
having some bourbon, had a little too much. I'll tell you, that bourbon definitely did swing last week. You were right about that. It burned. I'll let you continue.
That's all I've got to say. Just a poor showing. I'll give them a C. That's about as good as I feel good about giving them.
Yeah, Missouri's kind of the kid in class that has a lot of potential, but it's just kind of messing around. And you want him to succeed. He's got it all. I'm gonna give Missouri a C+.
I'd like to have you as my teacher.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mainly for the reason that we've been watching Missouri football for years now, and we know that in the past this is a game that Missouri probably loses. So you see that the program has made a step. The football team played a bad game and was still able to get an SEC win. I think that counts for something, so I'm going C+.
Yeah, they didn't bend. They did bend, but they did not break, and that's what it was too. I do want to give a shout out, like Furrow Field, absolute. Yeah. You want to talk about stadium pulse? I know a lot of people are playing this new college football game on PS5 or your Xboxes. Sure. Stadium pulse. That thing was all the way through the roof at Furrow Field. You saw it in real life right there. Amelia, I do want to ask you about your grade here. Are you in the C range as well, or are we talking about a 2.0 GPA?
I'm also giving the Tigers a C.
Okay, right on.
I think if it was per position group, that would be a different story. I think overall, though, you would give a C. I was thinking about originally giving them a little lower because they were this close to failing. But you got to give, Nate Noel, you got to give the defense credit. You got to give all the other people credit in the team. So team effort for a C.
Well, I guess none of you guys want to have me as your teacher, because I'm a little lower than y'all, and it's for this reason. I got the Tigers. I got them ranked at a D here, and the reason I have them at a D is because an F is failing. If you get upset by an unranked team, Vanderbilt, who you have not lost to since 2019, when you've been in the best position you've ever been in as a program, that's my definition of failure. And the Tigers took them into not just one overtime, but 2 overtimes, and it took, their kicker shanking like a 20-something yard field goal because Furrow Field was just in an absolute frenzy. To me, that's about as close as you can come to failing without actually failing, and that's why I give the Tigers a D. Because if you do lose that game, it's an F, in my opinion. And everything you guys said is right. They found a way to win. I'm with you in your enthusiasm. But man, when you walked out of that stadium, there was more of a pit in your gut. You're like, what in the world just happened? And the Tigers were able to get away. So they're not failing my class, but they really got to change some things around. Maybe a couple study halls in that bye week. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to this week's show of the Tiger Kickoff. You guys will not be with us next week because we're taking some time off. Maybe some bourbon in Nashville. I don't know. We'll be doing something with Cusack and his Not me. I'm not 21. These guys can. I can't. But we're taking the week off. You guys enjoy it. You won't have to listen to us yap about Missouri Tiger football. Maybe say some prayers for this team that they figure things out in the bye. But hopefully Tigers figure it out. We'll have everything breaking down on Texas A&M, Tigers' first road game. That'll be not this Thursday, but the Thursday following, when we'll have that full coverage. Thank you guys again for watching the Tiger Kickoff Show. We're presented by the Missourian, our wonderful Missourian crew right here. Adam Busack, Davis Wilson, Amelia Hurley, Jacob Siciliano signing off for the Tiger Kickoff Show. We'll see you in a week and a half from today.